Is there trans mask hypno?
No, I bet Ben Shapiro watches it, though. I'm sorry, Ben Shapiro gives off very, like, new trans man energy because he's trying very hard to perform the masculine.
Right.
Even though he looks like Abby, his sister, in a chest binder.
Yeah.
Like, he's so cute. He's so cute and little. I'm really... Just want to, like, get him to shut up by putting his whole head in my vagina. Just...
Yeah, or as we say on Twitter, would transitioning have saved her?
Would it?
Yeah, you effing with some wet female!
Nuts, insane, out of your mind, completely irrational.
I don't think that men can control crazy women.
This is the Low Value Female Podcast, a podcast where we seek to decouple economic rewards from the female sex. Because I believe in equality, and I want pussy to be worth dick. And I'm joined, as always, by my best friend and co-host, Taylor. Hi, Taylor. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. I just listened to the 2019 Heritage Foundation Conference, and boy, are my arms tired. They are quite the treat to listen to.
Yeah, I don't think I would be okay after I listened to that.
You know, it's just the usual, like, women need to get back in the kitchen. That's what it is. We get back in the kitchen so men stop complaining. That's what the gist of what I got from the Heritage Foundation. Or maybe someone can point me to other works that they have. Please don't. I mean,
they're like the ARC conservative organization or whatever, the ones that are more or less trying to undo democracy so they can reinstate like medieval life norms or whatever, right?
Yeah. And for 2019, there was a special guest, a very special guest from Baltimore. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, Julia Beck.
I'm not.
Oh, she's a lesbian. In the speech that she gives, it's pretty phenomenal what she brings out here. And like, the reason that I wanted to bring this up is because I feel like this truly gets to the heart of the problem with TERFs. Like, you made the joke about TERFs and SWERFs, and I was like, that's funny. That no, really, they really are like sex worker exclusionary as well as being trans exclusionary. But yeah, so this was Julia Beck.
Tell us in her own words
why she is discriminated against.
Lesbian. You might be thinking to yourself, why is a lesbian speaking at the Heritage Foundation? And I ask myself the same thing. But my answer is pretty simple. There is no place for me. I am politically homeless. So believe me when I say I am grateful for the opportunity to share my story. My story is as unbelievable and absurd as it is commonplace. I got kicked off of the Baltimore mayor's LGBTQ commission as the only lesbian, simply for stating biological facts. After a months-long witch hunt, I was found guilty of violence. My crime? Using male pronouns to talk about a convicted male rapist who identifies as transgender and prefers female pronouns. It doesn't matter that he sexually assaulted 2 women in a women's prison after being transferred there on account of his gender identity. Oh no, it is far more criminal for me to call a male rapist he than it is for him to rape.
So what I really love about this clip is that this is precisely what they do. They are equating the privilege of being on a committee for the city of Baltimore with being a convicted rapist. This person that they're talking about, I actually wouldn't look at. I don't know if you're familiar with the case of Karen White in the UK.
Not the specifics, but I've heard the argument before.
Yes, so apparently, if you wanted to make a case of like the worst actors, this person seems like the worst kind of person.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's particularly difficult to say that there are some criminal trans people. There's some criminal trans women. There's criminals in every group.
But what I am going to say is, I don't think that it's worse to get raped by a man than it is by a woman. And in fact, I looked up the female prison statistics in America. It's pretty interesting.
I was hoping, because this is going to be a hole in my knowledge right here.
In the study, Female Inmates and Sexual Assault, published 2014, the rate of inmate-on-inmate sexual victimization is at least 3 times higher for females at around 13.7% than males at about 4.2%. This has been attributed to the fact that the majority of prison officials do not view female-on-female sexual assault as true rape, making them less likely to reprimand inmates.
What?
Staff don't see female sexual assaults as a problem, so they don't take any steps. Now, when a man rapes another man in a male prison, they take steps to do something.
Yeah.
Because that's treated seriously. Like, this lesbian wants to treat that seriously. By the way, she was not the only lesbian on that committee, I found out.
No way.
Yeah, she says she was the only lesbian on that committee because she's the only cis woman on the committee
Oh, I see.
that identified as a lesbian. She was called out by another one of her colleagues for being a transphobe. And when asked to clarify her position, she continued to misgender her colleague.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, they said, no, you gotta go.
Wow, I'm amazed that you found this incident. This is extremely emblematic of the entire dynamic going on right now. The, self-bullying, self-victimization, the, outright bigotry.
But I found it on Congress.gov. And basically, she says this. Julia had expressed the view that trans-identified males in correctional facilities deserved a safe, separate space away from the general population. All right, that's not that bad. But they should not have the right to be incarcerated in women's facilities where women may be forced to shower and sleep with them, or to force a guard who is a woman to handle their male genitalia in a strip search. So we don't even want the guards to touch dick if they're a woman.
Yeah.
That's insane. If you're a guard doing a strip search, you've seen it all.
You would think so.
And them having an outie versus an innie isn't any more of a threat.
Well, the thing about it to me is that trans women in prison will often have their hormones refused. So, yeah, if there's a man in women's prison, you put him there. You forced that woman to transition back into male. If you look at the studies on what hormonal transition does to your body strength, every aspect of your physical body, we are not any more particularly dangerous than, frankly, a athletic lesbian.
Well, and the problem with rape isn't the physicality as much as it is the coercion,
of course,
the psychological abuse, what that does to you afterwards. We can say forced impregnation is a problem that we can fix as a society.
Certainly.
If we just allow, abortion to be readily available for anyone that wants it. But this woman who is trying to talk to Julia as look, I have been a lesbian for decades. This woman transitioned long before she came on this. She's been in the community, the LGBTQ community in Baltimore for years. That's why she was on the community.
Well, I know girls like this, yeah.
And she's trying to appeal to Julia, saying, hey, we both experience these problems. And Julia's refusing.
Yeah.
She says this. Ava refused to acknowledge that females have any distinct interest worthy of consideration. Ava simply erased those distinct interests by declaring that males who self-identify as women and female must be treated as such for every conceivable purpose, even sexual orientation.
Yeah, that's the standard gender essentialist position, right? Yeah.
This is one of the funniest things that she said, though. When we introduce gender to the sexuality, we will have male people with penises claiming to be lesbians because they identify as women. And that is affront to my sexuality as a female homosexual. It's a form of conversion therapy to pressure lesbians into having sexual relationships with male-bodied people. No one is pressuring you to have sex with them.
So I'd like to say she can ask my partners if she thinks that having sex with me is anything like having sex with a cis male, because I guarantee you it's not.
Hey,
It's about the furthest thing from it.
I'm amazed. I can't imagine. She's politically homeless.
Yeah.
Politically homeless. This poor lady.
Well, lesbians overwhelmingly support trans women more than any groups. Statistically, despite, the narrative of the transphobic lesbian, most lesbians are not transphobic. And it's just this very loud minority that have allied themselves with the Heritage Foundation and a bunch of cis political lesbians. Yeah.
Political lesbians is always like a really weird term. It's like, is there politically gay guy? It's just lesbians. It's just women have to make the stand with their sexuality. Like, no, this is political. That seems...
Well, I mean, it's either one presumes bi, but perhaps straight women who have decided to become lesbians. I believe Helen Joyce, the economist transphobe, she is a political lesbian. That's why he said that. And she wrote a book just called Trans, When Ideology Meets Reality, which is exactly what you would expect it to be. And even has a fun little bit of It Was the Jews about 3/4 of the way through.
Damn it, why does it always come back? I've met many Jews. They're not that interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are, but that's because I like those people. That's despite their Jewishness.
Well, yeah, don't understand. It's the international Jew that's the issue. The Judeo-communist, as it were. If we're going to take this back a few decades, Judeo-Bolshevik.
Julia Beck wasn't the only guest there. There was also, are you familiar with, what's her name? Parker Posey?
Oh, am I?
So Parker Posey, you should describe who Parker Posey is. I only briefly understood her now.
Okay, Parker Posey is the, might say, cultural feminist, fascist feminist who regularly platforms the far right at her rallies. But the most important thing to know about her is that when she went to New Zealand, I'm pretty sure a lesbian poured a can of tomato soup on her.
That sounds like Parker Posey, all right. She was also at the 2019 Heritage Foundation conference, and I don't...
Yeah, because she's just a conservative. She's not a feminist at all.
So she went there to try to, I guess, parlay, what is the term of it? To, see common ground with these people. And there's this great video that she shot before conference where I guess she is crying about people being mean to her online. And because she's also getting flack from her own feminist core.
Right.
Because she's at the Heritage Foundation.
Right.
And they're not super kind of feminists.
No.
They don't like them.
They kind of don't want them to exist at all.
Exactly. So her, as a feminist, being there, really set off some things. So she's crying on this video about, look, I'm doing this for women because there's these mothers that she's meeting at the conference that supposedly they've had daughters transition.
Oh, yeah, this is a real demographic.
She's describing this one woman where this woman is crying to Parker Posey about how nobody can help her with her daughter. All the school wants to do and all the doctors that she takes her daughter to want to affirm her gender transition to a boy. And she's just like, this is insane. This is insanity.
There's a whole joke on trans Twitter about saying to people like this, good luck when your child goes no contact, when your son goes no contact at 18.
That's precisely what's going to happen. And that was the other thing, is that she met other people that had these stories about how they lost their children. And I'm not going to say it's not a transition for parents to see their child as a different gender. And that can be a whole process where people have to learn how to get to know each other again. And maybe they don't like each other now that they're a different person. Maybe the reason that we're friends with their parents was because it kept them in the body that they disliked.
Yes, definitely.
And maybe they're like, well, that's no longer the case. I'm really my own person now, and now my values do not align with yours. And I can acknowledge that could be a really problematic process, but your solution to, well, then we should keep them
in a bubble.
Yeah, a bubble. Keep them in line.
It's like Ponyo's dad.
It's like Ponyo's dad. No, I want you to be saving my little baby forever. You can't ever grow up.
Yeah, exactly. Because children are property. You can tell I have a child.
Yeah. 2, in fact.
Yes.
You're like, I don't want to do it twice. So, speaking of prison systems, one of the other things that, of course, TERFs like to talk about is the sex workers. Somehow, female bodies are corrupted by male penises. And
yeah.
They also have, was it Kimberly Raymond?
Mm-hmm.
She talks about this in her transsexual empire. She usually has...
Janice Raymond.
There you go. She has an updated thing on her webpage about boys also being caught up in the sex trade. So I feel like it's not just women, but it is primarily women that they are concerned with, and the female body being corrupted by males having sexual access to them, either in a coercive way or just for like money.
Well, as I always say, the woman was the first commodity. Would you understand what I was saying if I said that it was like when you take gold and stamp a coin face into it, it changes what the coin is? And the same thing happens when you fuck a woman or fuck a girl for the first time, right? You stamp her with your penis.
Mushroom stamp.
Yes. And now she's yours or damaged in a way that weakens her.
I actually really like that analogy of now it's stamped as mine. Because otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. The vagina isn't like harmed by repeated use. It doesn't get worn out. I mean, I get worn out, but that's because I get exhausted, not because too much penis.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. The incels have the roasties concept where it's like you can tell if a woman's had too much sex by how, I guess, full her lips are.
Oh, yeah. If she has big lips, she fucks, which is a bad thing.
I try very hard not to go down this route because too many women and activists go down this route, but I find that really makes it seem like you want a prepubescent woman.
I think there's something very important to that, but also I want to say that I think that the existence of incels kind of obscures the fact that the whole trad wife thing, because like, the reality is that heterosexuality is not anti-sex. It's just only pro-sex in a very set of conditions. But wives are expected to put quite a bit of effort into the sexually pleasing their husband in a way you might say a liberated woman is accustomed to, right? But just you're doing it wrong because you're not doing it within the conditions of marriage.
You have to, as Margaret Sanger would say, do the sex in bed with your husband, but don't self-abuse because that's disgusting.
Right. Disgust is a key factor here.
What this does is it creates the situation where you have these sexually deprived people who are just constantly thinking about sex, but they have to think about sex in such a way that it doesn't seem like they're thinking about sex. Oh man. So I have this book called Sex for One, and it's great. I love this woman so much. She is an activist. I can't remember the author's name, but in Sex for One, in the very introduction, she talks about masturbating as a teenager I think she grew up in the 60s, 70s, and her fantasies wouldn't be about sex. It would be about her wedding.
Oh, I definitely did stuff like that as a kid too.
Right. So you have you never she's not thinking about the sex acts itself, but rather getting up to the wedding night, and then there's kind of this, then things happen.
Yeah, the empty space that she's not aware of exactly. She just knows what triggers it.
And something about seeing the male form and whatever.
Even if you do know what triggers it, you can teach your kids about sex, but you don't know what it's going to be like until you do it. It's just an idea.
Exactly. So that's a way for men and women to need each other. They need each other so desperately because they have been prohibited from pleasing themselves. So they have to they can't satisfy themselves. They need other people to satisfy them. And that way you keep them on that kind of track. You keep them faithful. Well,
it's a body politics.
Yes, it's body politics. That's why I feel like there needs to be men that say I'm a straight dude because I'm a political straight dude. Political straight dudes.
I'm pretty sure that exists. It's called super straight and it's fascist.
Is there really super straights out there?
Oh yeah.
God damn it. That is dumb. You're not that super.
Well, it just basically means you won't fuck trans people. Or the blue hairs in general.
But what if they're really good? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing.
Don't listen yourself off to any kind of possibilities like that. You could see. I even dated Mormons for a little while until I was all right, I can't do that anymore. They are.
Well, but the thing is that they love trans porn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Were you saying something about the sissy hypno?
I was saying something about sissy hypno. That's a whole nother thing because of the Cass report, or no, not because of the Cass report, but because of Steve Hassan and his whole idea that transgender is a cult because they're sissy hypnoing people into becoming trans through high pressure tactics. Not that it just doesn't understand what a fetish is, or his own is so deeply submerged that he can't engage with it.
So I found sissy hypno on, my porn sites.
For sure.
And they were very much in the same search results as the racial cucking.
And trans porn, yeah.
And then there are very, I would say, heterosexual, like, women's hypno of, like, you are a sex object and that's it.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of hypno out there.
Oh, different types of hypno?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's, yes, that also kind of reminds me of the Jordan Peterson being afraid of the milking machines. Like, we're afraid of porn, guys. We can't be afraid of porn. It's not going to corrupt our kids. I promise you. I promise.
Well, I mean, it depends on what your definition of corrupt is, because from their perspective, it's corrupting, but from our perspective, it's just them learning about the state of nature in their own bodies or whatever. But I mean, unfortunately, filtered through a patriarchal lens, of course. I guess there is some problems there with the whole like porn-brained thing, but which is kind of true just as much as like when dudes' only experience of women is through porn, that's like what their expectations are. And so like that's like what's going on with all the guys who are like, video game women are not hot enough anymore.
Yes, and like what do you mean by hot? Like I guess we can like put on all of these like filters.
Yeah. Pornified, yeah. So it's not that there's anything wrong with porn, it's that you wish there was more feminist porn.
Right. And my kind of thing of like, well, I don't know why they have to look a certain way for you to get off. Like,
they don't. They're just ashamed of it.
Men will fuck fruit, okay? I don't really think she's got to look like a 10 for you to get off. I'm pretty sure
porn is one of the biggest categories of porn, and they're all, I mean, none of them look like straight girls. They definitely all look like trans women because, I mean, except maybe Natalie Mars and a few others.
Porn is like dominant, right? Like you want like...
There's plenty of submissive bottoming too, but just like, you never see them after bottom surgery.
Now they're just a woman.
It exists, but it's much rarer.
They want that little extra.
Well, and even the ones that almost all of the ones that you see after bottom surgery is like, these girls earned the money to get their bottom surgery through sex work, and so they don't always get the best work done, and so it becomes very obvious, and like it's a little sad. I might get in trouble for that one.
Oh no, I mean bodies happen, and like I find that like that is like super sad. I want people to have the best vaginas if they want it.
Yeah, I wish all of us could have vaginas built by Mount Sinai, which I believe has the like gold standard. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. And like they can make them like actually get wet.
Yeah, out of your own fucking stem cells. There's some surgeons in Southeast Asia who are as good or better at making it look like a cis vulva, but they could easily learn that technique, and then they would be, get like right up there again. But I feel like if you could get that, why would you not get that if you can afford it, if you can get insurance to pay for it? Like,
so I love that.
So futuristic.
I absolutely love that like they can do all of this amazing stuff with biology, because this really like ties into my like conception of reality, which is biology is very mutable. It's very, very mutable. It's very easy to manipulate. And like, yes, you are going to run up against some like hard lines in biology where you're like, okay, well, we can't do that. But as long as we can do it, the question only then becomes, should we? And I don't see any downside in changing a person's biology to suit whatever needs they want. We do that literally all the fucking.
It's kind of a modernist versus anti-modernist perspective, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was looking up like the rates of like intersex surgeries done on babies. There's not a lot of great research on it, but I found that the justifications for these intersex surgeries for like babies, right, hot out of the womb, we're like, well, we want them to like look normal,
Right.
so you were literally gatekeeping these children. And like the study that I found that talked about this, there's a condition, what is it, like hypergonadal or hyperplasia, but it's a condition where you have female looking with male internal parts.
Oh.
And so that becomes really complicated because you don't actually know how they're going to turn out.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are XY individuals who appear with full androgen insensitivity.
So there's full androgen sensitivity, there's partial androgen sensitivity.
Uh-huh.
And so that becomes like full androgen sensitivity, they're female. Like there's just no...
You wouldn't know unless you do a chromosomal test.
Exactly. So you would have no idea. Also, they don't have... they also don't have armpit hair, is another thing that they don't have. So like once they reach puberty, they don't get the spurt of like hair growth because all of that requires androgen. Yeah. So also seems pretty lucky. Seems a lucky draw there. But they also have very low sex drives.
Well, you were also saying something about trans children and wanting them to look normal, and
we want all children to look normal. We want them to look like. And my mother was a nurse practitioner in the newborn ICU.
But that's exactly what they don't want, because they want them to be marked so they can tell, so they can fetishize them and hold them down.
Well, yes, it is exactly about sex, and like especially for men, and masculinity requires you not to be gay.
Well, yeah, because masculinity is a regime, but, you know, in as much as it's a regime, if it can be shown to be porous to a degree that's you can't tell that it's porous, like, how do you know who to assign what status to?
Exactly. You can't just have them all be the same status. And like
the girls can become boys and gain status, and if the boys can become girls and lose status, then that fundamentally, like, it scatters something in the like control techniques of like what you might say the Bronze Age attitude. That's what a lot of their more serious thinkers, quote unquote, talk about.
Yes, and I mean it's not just status. Like it really goes to the heart of like what I hate to use like the word toxic femininity, toxic masculinity, but especially since if I say toxic masculinity, people will automatically say, well, you think all masculine is toxic. No, that's why I use a descriptor. Yeah. I
mean, I think it's an attempt to name, like, the patriarchal aspects of masculinity.
Right.
Masculinity as a regime, like I say.
I kind of, I'm starting to think that the better terms are the high-value descriptor, because a high-value male is one that's, like, used in society as, like, oh, this is the pinnacle, this is the guy.
Yeah.
And a high-value woman, that's the woman, that's the lady.
So, a bit of an obscure reference here, but Wilhelm Reich, the communist psychoanalyst, called that sex economy.
Yes.
So really, you can elaborate it even farther. Like, are we trading options on women?
Yes. Yeah. That's pretty great. The high-value woman and the high-value male, like, both of these people work together to create, like, you know, whatever the perfect union, the ideal platonic union between a man and a woman. And it's not just that when a trans person becomes like the other gender, they're losing or gaining status. It's much more that you are changing the role that you're supposed to be functioning. So,
well, and your sex is a spiritual phenomenon.
Of course.
I mean, it is spiritual, but I'm trans and I still have a trans spirituality, and it works just fine, thanks.
Yes, I think that the things that we try to impose on the world is a big, chaotic place in ways that we don't necessarily perceive or understand. And so any category that we put on something is going to naturally be.
And also, yes, exactly. Like, as I was saying, masculinity and femininity are porous. Like, butch cishet woman has a different gender identity than a skinny little pretty in the socially acceptable way cis woman does, because they're going to do very different beauty practices, like mate attraction practices.
So I have a story about that. So I used to be a really great wingman growing up. This is part of like being a low value female that I think a lot of women will appreciate and understand this. So I used to have pretty friends. I still do. But, back when I was going out to bars and whatnot, I would be the fat chick that they would take to make them look better. Right. That was my role. My role was to make them look better. In addition to that, there's a comedian that has a comedic song about fucking the fat friend when you're on the bar. The Chad wants to fuck the Stacy, and Becky is interfering because, in my case,
fat girl's lower than Becky, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In the lore of this,
indeed, in incel lore.
My goal was also to run interference if my pretty friend, did not like the guy.
Yeah.
Like, I was the much more aggressive one. I was the one that didn't have a problem telling the guy to go fuck off, because I don't have a status that's worth saving. So it's not like you could do anything to me. What are you going to do? Call me fat and ugly? I don't give a shit. Fuck off. I wasn't going to fuck you anyway.
Yeah.
So that was my role as the fat friend.
It's a very hated positionality within male culture.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, they hate the fat chicks. So I would do that, and I didn't have a problem doing that. I also like being confrontational with people, and so I like especially doing that to my friends. That was like a fun thing to do, but that was like the role that I was to have, because I am never going to be the high value woman. There was no reality where I could diet and get enough work done to be the high value woman. And I honestly can't see why it would be like worth the trouble. It doesn't seem like it would gain me any more than what I have now. I have privilege, and like, don't get me wrong, I am still, as a white woman, have privilege, but
you have a pretty great life.
I have a pretty great life. I enjoy my life a lot. I don't think it's going to get any better if I try to look more conventionally attractive. Especially now that I'm married, I find the dating market extremely exhausting, and I can't imagine that it's gotten any fucking better.
No, it's gotten worse.
I cut my teeth. Like, I used to love Craigslist personals. I wish they would bring Craigslist personals back.
I feel like when we were younger, men were much less consciously misogynist.
Oh, now they're just consciously misogynistic?
Yeah, because there's so much conscious misogyny going around in our culture that they just pick up on it, and then they can express the underlying shit that they were trying to lie about doing when we were young.
I almost think that's better. And I say that knowing that it can seem a lot worse as far as like how they're going to treat women. Yeah. But I think that an unconscious bias is worse than a conscious bias.
Yeah.
Only because if it's conscious, you can now fuck with it. Now you can like examine it, look at it. Now you're thinking about it in those terms. And there is a hope that your mind can be changed with, the right experiences, with the right, like, argumentation. When it's an unconscious bias, I feel like it's a lot harder to change.
That's an interesting question. Like, but I think it could probably go either way, because, like, when you have someone, it requires, a different kind of work on the woman's part to help them identify their unconscious bias and process it, which would lead to like a, from our perspective, good outcome. Whereas if they process that unconscious bias as being affirmed by, a higher status male figure, then they like go in the, let's say, traditional direction, Bronze Age direction, dominator culture.
Gotta be dominant. That is so fucking hilarious. So like in my TERFs, I've been researching, there was this one woman, Nina Powers, who wrote a book called What Men Want. Spoiler, What they want is forgiveness. Now, I haven't read the book, and I don't want to because I don't want to give her money. I don't like giving any TERFs money, but I find that to be pretty fucking hilarious to just like, oh, so we're just supposed to forgive all men everywhere of every rape and oppression and like just like not giving you credit cards or a bank account until the 1970s. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. That's a weird thing to say. And like, I don't know what that means to forgive men. Right. Like,
if we could forgive every individual man, that patriarchy would cease to exist because they only uphold it out of shame.
Well, then you have to forgive women for every what? Like, what do they talk about? False rape allegation, or any time a woman has like poisoned her husband.
Yeah, like disarming the culture war.
Yeah, like.
Well, but again, that's cultural feminism because it sees it as like a equal on both sides.
Yeah.
Which is actually a Catholic thing of the like complementarity of male and female. And that's like what actually undergirds a lot of cultural feminism. Like you see it from Mary Daly and her students, who Janice Raymond, which is why I wanted to say this. And the whole like there's something spiritual about being male and female, that kind of, you see that start happening in the 70s after, you know, the people lost in 69 or whatever. And like it's cope, you know, but it's old-fashioned cope too, and it's like sneaks in the back door. And that's like kind of where this whole like cultural feminism thing, I don't know if you could say completely that it originates from, but like the softening of feminist positions through this sort of mystical nonsense.
Oh, spiritual, like the divine masculine.
Yeah, exactly.
And how are you supposed to...
Is there a divine queer?
Damn it, there should be.
Maybe the coyote or the Joker, like the movie Joker.
So the other thing that she said that men want is, I guess, to be constrained, you know, in the like daddy sort of sense, not in a mommy sense, never a mommy sense.
That's what makes it transgressive.
We could wrap this up, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here, and Tanya. And what I wanted to like talk about next time, because we didn't quite get to it this time, was toxic femininity. Because I have a whole thing on that as well.
I'll love to hear it, because I'm not sure what my position about this is.
I have a lot of like interesting thoughts about it, and it does like tie into the divine masculine and divine feminine. But I appreciate you for being here, Taylor. As always, you're so insightful and smart and fun and beautiful. Thank you.
Bye.